Hello, hello. I'm excited because we are, Be'ezras Hashem, about to finish the second to last perek in Shabbos. Be'ezras Hashem. A lot of interesting agaritas still about the end of life. And then we're going to start the last perek. Yes, 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 it's coming. Siyum is coming soon. What's going to happen soon? Our Siyum or Mashiach? Maybe together? In any event, so we're going to start the last perek. And the staff today is Kuf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph. It's very easy to remember. Kuf Nun Gimel is like king, and we're going to talk today about a king, the king, with a very interesting mashal. This year, like all my other shiurim, are for the Ilu Neshama of my beloved father Menachem Ben Akiva, and I think it's time we start. Says the Heilige Gemara, Baruch Hashem, learning about the neshama going up to Shamayim. Omar Rav Yehuda Breder Rav Shmuel Bar Shilat, Mishmei de Rav. Rav Yehuda, the son of Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, quoting Rav, he's saying the following: Mespede shel Odom nikar im ben Olam Haba hu im lav. The way a person is being muspad, being eulogized, the kind of hesped they give over a person, shows you whether there's a ben Olam Haba or not. Meaning, the way it seems to be is that, sometimes you're curious, somebody is nifter, a relative, a friend is nifter, and you wonder, will he make it up to Olam Haba or Chas v'sholem no? So, you know what? You don't have to look that far. Look at the hesped, listen to the hesped. If people cry, if people really shed tears over him, then he's an Adam kosher, he's a kosher person, and he goes to Gan Eden. Right? So in Ben Olam Haba hu, good hesped, people are really crying, then he's a ben olam haba. Im lav, if not, then no. If he's not exactly getting his levaya is not a tearjerker, then he's possibly not not a ben olam haba. Yeah. So that's the way. In other words, people know at the end of the day, this seems to be a little bit of a contradiction to all the very famous stories about the person that everyone thought it was a rasha, but really was a tzaddik. Okay, I'm saying I have some explanations slash reservations about this story because at the end of the day, if a person is a really good person, people would know about it, and if he's not a really good person, people would also know. It's true there are hidden secrets both ways, but generally speaking, if people feel the loss and they really realize and feel this was a really good person, then they would cry, and in Shemaim they would welcome into Olam Haba, and otherwise no. Depends sometimes on the people, circumstances. We're going to see some exceptions to the rule soon, but generally that's a story. The Maharsha says something interesting, and he says many times people praise people because they are powerful. Meaning, let's say Mr. Okay, I'm not about Mr. Whatever is a very powerful person. Yeah, he has all these millions in a bank or some other powerful position for whichever reason. I don't know, is a famous guy. And people either machnif him, they pander to him, they like to flatter him because they're scared of him. He's a Rosh Hakol, he's an important guy, he's the manal of the school, whatever. So I don't know, the head of the CEO of big company, the big donor, whatever that is. So they're either scared of him or they are kind of, want to be on his better side, but it doesn't mean they really, really like him. They're not going to really cry when he dies, right? So therefore, the real litmus test is would people really feel the loss after the death? That shows if he was a really good person or not. That's a moment of truth for him and for us who stay behind. Any frag the Gemara, is that so? Is that so? V'amar Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. Rav told Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, this is the same people, right? Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas quoted Rav, and yet Rav himself, when it came to his own death, Rav told Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, which I guess was his Talmud, he told him, he instructed him what to do at the time of the hesped, and he said, Achim be'espeda, I want you, when you'll be maspid me, when you will eulogize me, when you give the hesped, I'm asking you to get everyone heated up, cham. In other words, I want to give a very, I want you to give them a tear-jerking hesped, so therefore I want them to cry. It's a zchus, I guess, for a person that people cry over him. It's a zchus for them. Because it says if you don't cry over a Talmud Chacham who dies, or at least feel the loss, your own children may die. Daf Kuf Hey Amud Beis, Chas v'Shalom, yeah? When a Godel is nifter, we all go to the Levaya, right? We feel the loss. So I want you to give a warm, a hot, warm hesped so people should cry. And you know why? Dosam Kaimna, I'm going to be there, right? The mace knows what we're talking about. When we talk about the mace, he's aware of that. I'll be there and I will listen to you, right? So therefore, make sure that you give me a good hesped. And that does make sense. Why? Because if you're telling me that if the person is an Olam Haba kind of person, then naturally people are going to cry, right? It was a simon, not a siba. It was an indication. So why do we need in Rav's hesped to get them all heated up and all teary eyed? Won't it happen by itself? Isn't Rav meriting, doesn't he merit to get natural crying from the people if since he's a real MSD good Ben Olam Haba? And says the Gemara, Loi Kashya. No, it's not difficult. Ha de mechamule ve'achim, ha de mechamule ve'loi achim, which means, Rashi says as follows. When an old person is nifter, very interesting, says Rashi, an old person nifter, people naturally, it's not nice to say, but Rashi is telling us the truth, people are not so broken. It's not such a big tragedy. The guy was nifter at the age of 85. People are not happy and his own children are sad. But it's not some crazy tragedy. The whole town talks about. It's not a 3 years old who died because he was, I don't know, chas v'shalom, hit by a truck. It's not a young mother of 5 children died out of cancer. It's not these tragedies. The guy's 85, he lived a long life. We're sad. We're not all broken and all, going crazy. Oh, however, if you warm up the hearts of the people, sometimes you warm up the hearts, you provoke the tears, and the tears come. You stand by the vibe that 85 years old, and then you realize, oh, he was that great. The maspid knows how to play the game and make the show, and you really realize that was really a loss, and you start crying. Sometimes the guy is really such a non ben olam haba that as much as the maspidim try, yeah, we need some Hollywood script writer over here, and it's not here. Yeah, meaning people don't cry. Mechamolei v'lo yachim. The Safdan, the Maspi, the one eulogizing, is trying his best, and people stay stone-faced. In such a case, we say, he's not a Ben Olam Haba. Mekoinenus is something else. No, no, no. I'm sorry, my dear friend, from the other side of the Zoom. Mekoinenus are women who wail, which not nice to say, but that's common today by the Arabs. And it used to be very common, and I think halachic, in the times of the Mishnah, in the times of the Tanakh. Somehow by Ashkenazi Jews it got lost, and even by Sephardim I didn't see it. Mekoinen are some women who wail and they play the flute, as we said. That's a different story. They make a big crying and balagan. The maspid is what we have today. The maspid is the rabbi or the relatives who stand there by the podium with the microphone. Oh, daddy, daddy. That's a maspid. Mekoinen is something, as far as I know, is something different. So maybe the mechanists can try. They're not really crying, as far as I know. They're not telling you the good traits of the person. They're just making a sad atmosphere. It's like the background music. But thank you for the mentioning. Thank you, Tzvi. So now, Amar la Abaye le Rabba. So Bekitza, what's the maskana? If the guy's young, yeah, or some crazy tragedy, some guy in the middle of his life in a car accident, and this, people cry because it's very sad. If the guy's old, then depends. If the guy's old and people either cry naturally or they cry after being, triggered to cry, then it's a ben olam haba. If people don't cry, it means it's not a ben olam haba. Don't assume that guy that people don't cry over was really a tzaddik, hit the head, but he did so much, and really he was a generous. I don't know. Yeah, in some cases it was a very big nister. In most cases, if the guy was nobody to cry about, Mistome, in Shamayim, they're not welcoming him either. Yeah, that's a message of the story. No big mysteries over here. There are exceptions to the rule. I want to just refer a little bit to. I'll get to the two dots, and then I'll mention the story which I'm alluding to. Amar Abaye le Rabba. Now Abaye, in light of the same idea we just mentioned about, people cry over you, doesn't also depend on the people, who is the crowd. Amar Abaye le Rabba. Abaye is addressing his Rav Rabba. Rabba was Abaye's beloved Rabba, not Rove. Rabba was Abai's beloved Rebbe. He really felt a big loss when he was Nifter, and then he moved over to Rav Yosef. So Abai is asking Rabba, obviously before he was Nifter, he asked him, Kigoin Mar, you Rabbi, Mar, the son of the Kulu Pumpedisoi, all of Pumpedisa, they all hate you. Why? Why do they hate Rabbah? Because Rabbah was MSD. Sometimes if people hate the rabbi, it's a good sign for the rabbi. It says so in the Gemara. In other words, the people of Pedisa, generally speaking, were swindlers. They were dishonest with their money. And Rabbah told them off. Rabbah wasn't a nice, smiley, politically correct rabbi. Rabbah was Rabbah, who was an echte Amoira. And he told them off, so they didn't like him. And that's the way it was. So now the question is, now Abai is asking Rabbah, all of Pumbedita hates you. The regular Balabatim and Pumbedisa, they don't like you. So man achim espeda. In other words, who's gonna get people to cry, or who would cry? I mean, it's not your issue, it's their issue, but people are not gonna cry over you. What's gonna be? Omar Le answers Rabbah, Mistaya at the Rabbah bar Rav Chanan. It's enough if you and Rabbah bar Rav Chanan, if you cry over me. Which means I'm not looking for quantity, I'm looking for quality. That's the idea. In other words, if only two Talmidei Chachamim cry over me, for me it's good enough, and for Shemaim it's good enough. In other words, here's the fourth factor. He's not young, he's not this and that, but what is he? Obviously, he's a Ben Olam Haba. People don't cry over him because they're not up to the level. They don't understand the loss. You can get a big Rav who lives in, I don't know, Ramat Gan. Nobody in the area knows, nobody cares. They're not living in his world, Bichlal. So then, if they don't cry, it's not an indication. If you have a small group of Talmidei Chachamim who did appreciate him, that's enough. I'm referring to the story, which apparently should be a real story because I've been to the caver and they say that Yosele, the Heilige Kamten, there's a story about a Jew in Krakow many years ago in the times of I think, Tamtas Yom Tov, and he was. No, 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 no. He was known to be a very, very big miser. He was very, very, very miserly. He was very, tight-fisted, and everyone hated him. And he never gave tzedakah. And only after his ptira, I'm cutting a long story short, they realized that he was really a very generous person. And then they buried him Bekovoid, and then the Tosfos Yom Tov moved his caver next to him. That I saw. Actually, I mean, I saw the caver. I didn't see the story. My own family is from Krakow. We're very well rooted in that city for generations. From my father's side, also my mother. So basically, so that was the story there. Oh, so that's an exception to the rule, because that Yosel guy, he went out of his way to hide his generosity. That's something else. But most people are not dafka so much busy hiding the real mitzvah. You know what I'm saying? Most of us, people know more or less who you are, what you are, and if they don't cry, there's a reason for that. And if they do cry, then the person ben Olam Haba. Ba minei Rabbi Elazar me Rav. Excuse me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol.
Amen.
Ba minei Rabbi Elazar me Rav. Rabbi Elazar asked Rav, Ezu ben Olam Haba? Oh, who's the ben Olam Haba? Another question, another indication. Who's going to get there? Yeah, how can it become a ben Olam Haba? Who's the ben Olam Haba? Amarle. So now he quoted a pasuk from the Novi, a pasuk from the Novi in Yeshayahu. V'oznecha tishmana dovo me'achorecha. Your ears will hear after your nifter me'achorecha. Yeah, after you die, and the dead person does listen to what's going on at the beginning, at least, right? Until the goylol, until he's eaten up. The beginning you can hear. If your own ears listen. What they say about you, Lamar, to say, this is the way you should walk. Go to the right, go to the left, like who? Like that person, that's a Ben Olam Haba. That's an unbelievable indication. Let me explain what the Pasuk says according to Rashi. Many times when a person is niftar, then you never say bad things. So what do you do when the guy is not such a good guy is niftar? So the rabbi gets out there and he ekes out some kind of compliment. He finds that one good point, and everyone says, "Yeah, he had nice shoes." Sunday morning he would maybe smile and give half a shekel. Something good you find. He's still nefesh, right? Yeah, Mashain can. You definitely, when the guy is a piece of work, is not a good guy, you're definitely not going to tell your children follow his ways. Politically correct is say, yeah, he was a good man, children. We're not going to say follow his ways. You know, Ben Olam Haba is a person that after he dies, people say about him to their own children, to their friends, to themselves, follow his way. That's a Ben Olam Haba. He's a dugma, he's a leader, he's an example for other people. Zeh derech lechu boi, ki taminu v'chi tasmilu. That's an unbelievable good indication to who's a real Ben Olam Haba. Somebody who's an example to follow, lemaisa. Yeah, follow his ways. Oh, means he's on his way to Olam Haba. Rabbi Chanina Omar. Rabbi Chanina says a different indication. Kol shedas Rabbi Seinu noicho himenu, or according to another girsa, Kol shedas Rabbi Sov noicho himenu. Anybody who's the opinion of his Rabbonim is happy with him. In other words, if his Rabbonim, whatever they hear about him or see in him, whatever the Rav, the leaders of the community know about him and they're satisfied with his behavior, that's the way. In other words, he could be a very good guy in the eyes of his Goisha partner at work. Yeah, because other things, yeah, he may be a good guy in the, I don't know, the guys in the basketball team think he's very nice, or maybe even the young guys in the kollel who don't know much. But if the Rav, if the leaders of the community, they're happy with him, oh, that's an indication of a real good person who is going up to the Olam Haba. And we're continuing, I don't want to sound like a safdan, chas v'shalom, but we're continuing now the last psukim of Koheles. V'sovevu bashuka soifdim. Oh, Koheles gets very, very clear over here. Sovevu bashuka soifdim. Yeah, the soifdim, the eulogizers, those who give the hesped, they start walking around the marketplace. It's the end of the day, the end of the life. So what do we learn from this pasuk? Bnei Galila Amri, the people from the Galil, from the northern part of Eretz Israel, they say, Amri asid dvorim lifnei mitoscho. Do the right things, yeah. So before you die, do enough things that lifnei mitoscho, the safdanim, the soivivim, they're around. The safdanim will say, will talk in front of your bed. The safdanim in Golil, they would stand in front of the bed, not like today, not like in Eretz Yisrael, as far as I know. Yeah. In other words, the mita is behind and the safdan is in the front. Yeah. So make sure that in the big show, not a show, the big event of the end of your life, yeah, people always talk, young people say, how is my wedding going to be like? How will my graduation will be like? Yeah. Think how your death is going to be like. Even before Olam Haba, think of what will they say about you when you die? That you are a cool guy, that you are updated with latest music. What will they say? Asad dvarim lifnei mitascha. Do many, many things that are good. So before your bed, the safdanim who will be standing in front of your bed will have real things to say. Bnei Yehuda Amri, the people of Yehuda, Eretz Yisrael was always divided, even politically and also mentally speaking, yeah, like in mentality, Yehuda and Golil. Some were rich, some were poor, there were this, there were that. There were two different types of Yidden, Yehuda and Golil. Bnei Yehuda Amri asad dvarim la'achar mitoscha. They said the same thing, but they related to the hesped as something done behind the bed. V'loi pligi, they're not arguing. Marki asrei, marki asrei, which means it's just a technical thing. In Yehuda, that's like today, the mita was in the front and the safdanim were behind. But both Yehuda and Golil mean the same. Make sure you behave in such a way that at the end of the line, at the last show, the last episode of the show of your life, there is what to say. Tnan Hosom says the Mishnah over there, that's the Mishnah in Maseches Ovois. Ablezer says, Shuv yom echad lifnei misoscho. Do tshuva one day before you die. One day before you die, then you do tshuva. Shalu Talmidim Rabbi, so his disciples asked him, Rabbi Lezer, v'chiyodim yodea ezo yom yomus? How do I know? Does the person know when he's going to die? When he gets older, it's more likely, but even then, you don't know. You don't know which day you're going to die. No, Chutim, all that, Hezbollah, Iran, I don't know you're going to die. Amar Lahen, he told them, V'kol sheken, all the more so, my friends. Yoshuv hayam sham yamus lamacho. Do tshuva today, because maybe tomorrow you'll die. That's the whole point. We don't know when you're going to die. So every day of your life is potentially the last day of your life. And that should provoke you even more to do tshuva on a daily basis so you know you died clean. And that's the famous line, V'nimtza kol yamav b'tshuva. Oh, comes out each and every day of your life, you're b'tshuva. They always write it in Sforim about the big Chassidish and other Gdolim. Nimtza kol yamav b'tshuva. Each and every day of his life, he's b'tshuva. So people ask, how can you do tshuva every day? Why not? In other words, let's at the end of the day, does cheshbon and nefesh, yeah, maybe he doesn't necessarily repeat the Avera. Sometimes he did tshuva yesterday. Today he wants to clean himself even more to a higher level, right? What today was considered to be a mitzvah, today is an Avera. He's going up and up all the time. Kol yom of b'tshuva. Every day, make a cheshbon nefesh and clean yourself and cleanse yourself and, put yourself into the cheshbon nefesh laundromat to make sure that you're b'tshuva every day because maybe tomorrow will be the day. The Av Shlomo Shlomo Melech said the same idea in his wisdom. He said, "B'chol eis yu b'godecha levonim." Every time, at every given moment, your begodim, your clothes should be white. The shemen al roishcha al yechsa. Yeah, and should always have sufficient amount of oil on your head. So we're going to now say the story of the Gemara, and then I'm going to tell you a beautiful, beautiful Maharsha about Shem al Rosh Chadechsa. So Shlomo is giving us a seemingly unclear advice. Your clothes should be white, maybe the white shirt, yeah? Your clothes should be white and you should always have oil on your head. What does it mean? And what does that have to do with the Gemara now, right? Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is going to explain to us half the pasuk. And he says as follows, Mashal lemelech, I told you, Daf Kuf Nun Gimel is melech, king. Mashal lemelech, once upon a time there was a king, just a moshel, an allegory. Shazim and a savad of l'seuda. He invited his avodim, his servants, to a seuda, to a meal, to a banquet. V'lo kavalem zman. He didn't tell them when. Yeah. In other words, at any given moment they can be invited to the seuda. I'm going to already do a spoiler and tell you what's a seuda. Well, obviously we understand it's a day of death, seuda, because those who will make it to Olam Haba will eat, will consume, so to speak, by basking in the light of Hashem. The people in Olam Haba who are unhappy or did not really make it are hungry all the time. And those who are satisfied are saveya, are satisfied by the light of Hashem. So the life after death is really called the Seuda. Right? We're not talking about the Seuda Losid Love of the Leviosam. That's not, no. The Seuda after you die, you consume the light of Hashem. So they were invited to the Suda, but there's no, the invitation says when? Whenever. Date? Whenever. Pikrin Shaben, the smart ones, the wise ones, Kishtros Atzmon, they, beautified themselves, the Yoshua Pesach Beis HaMelech, and they sat ready by the entrance of the palace. Amru, they said, Klum Chosel Beis HaMelech, Beis HaMelech is not missing anything, which means Beis HaMelech at no time will be ready for a meal. Yeah, this is not like a pizza shop in Tachana Merkazit. This is a palace. In the palace, everything is ready, and the seuda is just always ready. There's so many chefs and so many sous chefs and cooks and servants, and therefore we are sure that the seuda will be served ASAP. We're going to be, ready, steady, go to get into the palace. So we dress ourselves very nicely. We put on our, best Sunday clothes, and we are ready to go. Tichin Shaban, the foolish ones, what did they do? They went to work, they went doing whatever they wanted. They did not, relate to that Suda or the need to go to the Suda. I be invited to the Suda. Yeah, we know we're invited to the Suda. Amru, but they justify themselves for being unready, so to speak. And they said, Klum yesh Suda below Toirach. Is there a Suda without Toirach? Meaning, surely, even the king and his servants, they have to work hard to prepare the Suda. In other words, what do they say to themselves? Yesh Zman. Ever heard this expression? Macha, Yesh Zman. In other words, I'm going to die. Yeah, I'm going to die one day. You're 50 years old, 60 years old. One day. So, Pitom, suddenly, bam, bam, bam. But Pitom, Bikash Melechas Avadav, all of a sudden, the door opened. The king is asking the Avadim to come in. Pikrin Shaben, the smart ones, the wise ones, the ones aware, Nichnas Lafonim, Kshen Kushatin. They came to him when they were all beautified, all beautiful, all groomed up, all good looking. The The foolish ones had to go in because the king invited them. They have to go. There's no choice. That's a death going into the meal. But they're dirty. They're not ready. They were just playing with the mud, working in the mud. Samach HaMelech Likras Pikrim. The Melech was happy. Well, he welcomed the wise ones happily because the Tipshim was sad. He was angry with the fool ones, with the fools, with the foolish ones. Omar, and he said, "Alalu shekish tetzatman l'seuda," those who beautify themselves in honor of the meal, yeshvu v'yechlu v'yeshtu. They will sit, they will eat, and they will drink. They'll be treated, royally, royal banquet. Halalu shalokish tetzatman l'seuda. Those who did not prepare themselves, they did not embellish themselves for the Suda, Yamdu Viru. They'll stand and they will watch the other ones eating while they're not eating. That's frustrating. They'll be hungry watching the other ones having the meal of their lives. You can't imagine. Well, they'll be hungry and angry. There's a new word nowadays, hangry. It's a combination of hungry and angry. So it goes well together. But it's funny when just you and your wife before you had breakfast, but it's not funny when it's forever. So Yam Duviru, they're standing and they're watching. So now, before we continue, no. I'll say one more opinion, and then there's a lot more depth to talk about over here from the Marshal. Chasana shel Rabbi Meir's son-in-law says Mishum Rabbi Meir, quoting Hishver Rabbi Meir. Omar says, "Afen yirin k'mishamshin." That's not good enough for the bad ones. The bad ones, it's too good for them to stand by the Seuda and watch the meal. In a way, it's too good because when they're standing over the table, like as if they're waiting, like a waiter over the table, it looks as if they're also serving the good people. Ela, and that's not enough of a busha for them. They were so mechutzaf for not preparing themselves for the day of death that they are what? They deserve more of a busha, more shame in Olam Haba. And therefore, what's their punishment? Elu be'elu yoshvin. They both sit down. Yeah, alalu oichlin v'alalu re'evin. Those eat and the other ones are hungry. Alalu shoisin v'alalu tzmeim. Those drinking and the other ones are thirsty. Meaning that accentuates the difference even more. Yeah, right? You see, it stresses the difference because they're mamish sitting together. Man, when you're standing, I happen to be standing here. Why aren't you eating? I'm working here. But lemaisa, when you're sitting and you're not eating and he's eating, you don't have a plate and he does. I mean, you will have a plate, and the other one doesn't have. That's bad news. It's much more. You see the contrast. It's much more glaring. Shneimar, it says, "Kol mar Hashem." So says Hashem, "Hina avoda yochlu v'atem tiravu." My avodim will eat and you'll be hungry. He's talking to Rishoyim. Nobody to do with us. Hina avoda yishtu v'atem titzmu. My slaves, my servants will drink and you will be thirsty. Hina avoda yironim utuvlev. My avodim will be singing from tuvlev, goodness of the heart. V'atem titzaku mekevlev. You'll be crying because of the pain in your heart. Ad kan the moshel. Yeah, you want to say something? Listen. The Maharsha has two excellent points, many more than two. The two excellent points which I want to mention for the Maharsha, very nice and deep. Point number one. You notice this is the mashal also to do with clothes, with garments, but it's different to the other mashal that we spoke about a few days ago. We spoke about the other mashal of the melech who gave his clothes, his garments to the avodim. The smart ones kept it nicely in the box, right? While the Rishayim, they used it and they wore the nice silk and fancy clothes, the I don't know 50,000 pounds clothes like they have in London, yeah, that they wore to do the dirty work. And here we're talking about a different kind of their own clothes. Says the Maharsha, over there we spoke about the neshama, which is chelik kamimal. Hashem gave you His clothes, and that is what the neshama. Some people keep the neshama very, very clean, and that's an avodah. Keep your eyes clean, your mouth clean. It's a big avodah in 2025, more than ever, yeah? And that is Hashem's garment. As opposed to those who take Hashem's garment, the Heilige Neshama, and they put it down in the dumps, in the garbage. They put their mind in the garbage. Now this is a different kind of story about your own clothes. You have your own maisim toivim and own midas that you develop. Yeah, you have the clothes that you have. You're born with certain qualities. You develop qualities, and those clothes are your clothes that you're supposed to embellish, make nicer, make better. Not just keep them in the box. Develop them. You mekashtim. They add more and more, I don't know, jewelry and diamond and gold to the clothes, and that's what you're supposed to do to your midos to improve your midos more and more, right? That's the point. Second point, I have a question, and the Maharsha answers the question. The first part of the pasuk I understand. B'chol es yibgodecha levonim. What does it mean? Each and every day, clean your clothes. You wear a white, nice shirt every day. Meaning, as an allegory, I'm saying, you have to make sure. B'chol yom of b'tshuva. Clean yourself, just like you're not going to wear dirty clothes. You take them to the washing machine to the dry cleaners and they come out clean. So too, clean yourself every day, like the Avodei Hamelech, Avdei Hamelech, who kept their clothes clean all the time until they were called to the meal. Good? Now, what about Shem al Rosh Chal Yechso? What does that have to do with anything? The Gemara doesn't explain in this mashal the oil on the head. Says the mashal, I was on the floor and I saw this mashal. Says the mashal, Shemen is nesham, neshama. Al roishcho, it says the neshama shebemoichi. There are five parts to the neshama. Yeah, the third lower, the middle part, the third is the middle is neshama. Yeah, nefesh is down there. Ruach is in the heart. Neshama is in the moach. The neshama is the Yetzer Tov, more connected already to Hashem, and that's in the moach. So shemen al roishcho. Yeah, like we say by tefillin and the shama shebemoichi. The shemen is the shamen, the net shama in the head. Al yechsar, you will not be hungry. If b'choles b'decha levanim, your midos, begodim are always called midos, it will be nice and clean, you'll have good midos throughout your life, then shemen al rosh chal yechsar, the neshama in your hand, la'osid lavoi, will not be yechsar, will not be lacking, will not be hungry. Oh. Ach, that the Olam Haba. That Marsha is Olam Haba itself. Yeah? They asked to Bala Tshuva, how do you like it in the Bala Tshuva yeshiva, very high level yeshiva in the Tivot Olam in Bnei Brak. So one guy said, oh, it's like Gan Eden. The other one said, no, it's not like Gan Eden. It is Gan Eden. So that's Torah. Torah is it. Weiter. Now comes the Gemara with the second pshat. Dover Acher, another pshat. B'chol es yubgodecha lavonim elu tzitzis. Yeah, your begodim shall always be white, the tzitzis. So tzitzis should be white. By the way, you should know the fact of white tzitzis is not just a Haredi norm. That should be that way, preferably, because of many reasons. Because the beged and the chutim, the strings have to be the same color, preferably, and the strings have to be white because it's semer, so it's better both types should be white. I know some people like all kinds of colorful ones, but it's not ideal. Yeah, I'm not saying tchelis. No, 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 no. Tchelis is good, not tchelis. I meant the like they have a red tzitzis. Sabgodecha lavanim elu tzitzis. Yeah, the shemen al rosh chal yechsar elu tefillin. The shemen on your head should not be missing. That's tefillin. Yeah, meaning begodim lavanim tzitzis should always wear tzitzis, always wear tefillin, and that's your key for Olam Haba. Why? Because tzitzis is something that reminds you of Hashem all the time. Tzitzis is a big schar to people who wear tzitzis all the time. And tefillin, you should wear tefillin ideally the whole day, even though it's not the minhag today, but the Rambam says better the whole day, or at least during davening. The Rambam says whoever wears tefillin is going to be marich yomim. And the Maharsha here says one more thing before we continue. The Maharsha says, B'chol eis, what do you mean B'chol eis? He says, even if you don't have tcheles, which nowadays many of us don't know about, so even then you still have to wear the tzitzis, and tefillin, even if one is missing the yad or shel rosh, you should still wear the other one. Each one's a separate mitzvah. So there's no excuses. You should always be mekayim tefillin tzitzis as much as you can, and that's your path to Olam Haba. Of course, you have to live the mitzvah of the tzitzis and the tefillin. They keep in the right path. Hadar Allah Hashayel. Hey! We're done with perek number 23 in the longest Masechta in Shas, longest in text. We're about to start the last perek. You good? You want to say something? Yeah. Where's your time? I'm with you. Yeah.
The Spartan generally have the white sits where the Ashkenaz, have like the black stripe on it. What's the end
Right.
of that? I'm just out of curiosity, in terms of.
I'll tell you what the message. It is like that. The Prima Godim, I think, says the reason why you have the black stripes is to represent the tcheles, because for many durations there was no tcheles. Even today, it's a controversy which I don't want to go into. So those black not strings, those black stripes that we have, they are a reminder of the tcheles. I read that in, I think it's from Megonim, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Baruch Hashem, finally there was an answer. I read different things, but this I think it's on the Pri Megadim or quoted, I think the Pri Megadim himself. Yeah. Hadan alach shoyel, Baruch Hashem. And now we are about to start 5 minutes. It's a long time for Torah. Oh, the last perek, the main topic of the last perek, not the only topic. The topic of this Mishnah is what happens if somebody is on his way Friday afternoon and the Friday is becoming, Shabbos is approaching very fast and he's still in the middle of the road. Boom, boom, boom. We're not talking about somebody driving a car. He has to stop the car. That's a whole different story. We're talking about someone who took horseback riding with a goyish guide. Yeah, so let's say the person has his stuff, money, yeah, with him. He has his belongings, and he's now walking down the street. Could be in a situation of Rishus Harabim, of carrying Rishus Harabim. So make your idea. He has to stop, right, and not continue, and that's it. But there is a specific kula for such a situation. There was a kula for there's a kula for a person who's stuck in such a situation of not having of Shabbos coming in, and he still has his bag, his credit card, his money with him. Yeah, he can't just leave it on the side because he's going to lose all his money. There are certain kulas that Chazal allowed us in this case. Okay. Good. Beseder. So now, says the Heilige Mishnah, Mishich shichloi bederech, meaning he's walking down the street and it's Friday afternoon late, and hichshich bederech. In other words, it's getting darker and Shabbos is coming, and no, the Chabad house is nowhere to be seen, and he's stuck in Thailand or wherever, yeah? So what does he do? He has a kiss. He has a kiss, meaning a bag, a wallet, full of, I don't know, money, cash, credit card, checkbook, yeah? What does he do? Nois and kisoy lenochri. We're going to see why. Let's say there is a guy next to him. Let's say our good, faithful friend, our friend, Tim McKenzie. Let's say Tim McKenzie is right next to him, walking with him. Then, although it's otherwise usher to do, you can't ask a guy, even on a Friday, to do a malacha for you on Shabbos. Here, we're going to know why. There's an exception, and we say you can tell your friend, if you trust him, hey, Tim, can you please hold my wallet with the $3,000 inside and three nice full credit cards? Can you hold them for me and walk with them? Yeah. And Tim says, oh, for sure, I'm your best friend. And you can give it to Tim McKenzie, which otherwise you wouldn't be able to, because you can't have him do malacha for you, even planned on Friday for Shabbos, but this time you can. It's going to be Shabbos in 5 minutes. Nothing seems to be working for you. Then the guy can carry your wallet, your kiss, your pouch, whatever, with money for you. V'imeni manochri, no Tim McKenzie's, you're just Jewish company. What do you do? Manicha lechamor. Assuming you have a chamor, this is not so applicable nowadays, but let's say you have an animal with you, such as your own donkey. The second option, second best, is Mackenzie nowhere to be seen. Then you have your chamor, Mahmud Mahmad, the chamor. The chamor, you can put the item. I'm talking dafka about a wallet because we're talking about money loss over here, as we'll see in the Gemara. Your wallet with all its contents, you can place it on your donkey, and the donkey is going to walk with the money on it, yeah, with you, with many other conditions, which we'll see later, which again otherwise would be usher. Why would it be usher? To tell a guy to do malacha is an issa d'rabanan of what Amir al-Nochri Shvus. Now, chamor is an issa d'oraisa. Why? Because by the chamor it says in the Ten Commandments, it says ata v'chule v'chule ubemtecha. Your animal should be resting, and here it's even worse. Your animal stam carrying stuff, which was the malacha in perek b'mei behema. Here we're talking about mamish, you and the behema walking together, while the behema is doing a malacha with your kind of presence guidance. It's called mechamer. It's a specific issue deraisa. Like let's say the animal is, for example, is plowing for you, and you're just walking behind it, watching without even doing anything. It's usher. Yeah, the malacha doing malacha for you when you are in the story. It's called mechamer, as if you are, acting with a behema, and that's also midaraisa. And there is a kula over here in case you're going to lose the money. Now, finally the ordeal is over, and now he's been to Rosh Hashanah the highway. He finally arrived in town. Yeah. Now he came to the first, excuse me, to the first chotzer, the first courtyard, which is inside the populated area, right? So there, that's the first Rosh Hashanah he has arrived to. Either Mackenzie's holding it or the animal, and now we're talking about the animal carrying it. So he's walking, nothing on him. All the stuff is on a donkey, including the wallet, including the diamonds that what he has. That's on the donkey. Him and the donkey arrived to the first Rosh Hashanah that they hit. Then Noitel Sakelim, and he told him B'Shabbos, the stuff that you're allowed to take on Shabbos, it's not muktzah. You can take it off the donkey's back and enjoy it. Take your drink, whatever you want. The she'enin told b'Shabbos, any item that's on the donkey's back which is not allowed to be held on Shabbos, miktzah, miktzah. What do you do? Matir chavalim v'asakin oflim elem. You're allowed to undo the chevel, undo the rope that's tying them on the donkey's back, and then the bags with, let's say, muktzah just fall to the ground. What happens if they're going to break? There are about 5,000 questions in this Mishnah. Untying, muktzah, bevatel kli mechonoi. There is a lot of work to do with this Mishnah. We're not going to continue now. What's tomorrow? So tomorrow, Be'ezras Hashem, we are starting the Gemara. Okay? Get all your friends to come to the last perek. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to see very interesting stuff about if there's a child next to you, your child, if there's a person who's a special needs person, all that very, very interesting things. Okay, atzlocha bracha, shkoyach, whoa, we're starting the last parak. Torah anytime. Thank you to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Torah anytime to our Kadosh Baruch Hu's representatives in the internet. Shkoyach.